سأتلو على مسامعكم آيات بينات إن شاء الله من سورة غافر، من أول سورة غافر إن شاء الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حميم. تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز العليم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب شديد العقاب ذي الطول. لا إله إلا هو إليه المصير. ما يجادل في آيات الله إلا الذين كفروا، فلا يغرك تقلبهم في البلاد. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح والأحزاب من بعدهم، وهمت كل أمة برسولهم ليأخذوه، وجادلوا بالباطل ليدحضوا به الحق فأخذتهم، فكيف كان عقاب. وكذلك حقت كلمات ربك على الذين كفروا أنهم أصحاب النار. الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويؤمنون به ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم. ربنا وأدخلهم جنات عدن التي وعدتهم ومن صلح من آبائهم وأزواجهم وذرياتهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. وقهم السيئات، ومن تق السيئات يومئذ فقد رحمته، وذلك هو الفوز العظيم. إن الذين كفروا ينادون لمقت الله أكبر من مقتكم
الذين
قالوا اقتلوا أبناء الذين آمنوا معه واستحيوا نساءهم وما كيد الكافرين إلا في ضلال. وقال فرعون ذروني أقتل موسى وليدع ربه إني أخاف أن يبدل دينكم وأن يظهر في الأرض الفساد. وقال موسى إني عذت بربي وربكم من كل متكبر لا يؤمن بيوم الحساب. صدق الله العظيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته
ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد يقول الله عز وجل وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين حنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة وذلك دين القيمة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and they were not commanded except to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being sincere in their worship and in their religion, and to establish the prayer and to give zakah. And this is the upright and correct religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah, He talks about the concept of ikhlas. مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَلَا لِلَّهِ الدِّينُ الْخَالِصِ. The pure religion and the sincere submission is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-ikhlas, which is sincerity, is the most important concept in Islam. Because without ikhlas, without being sincere in our worship, there is no difference between a munafiq and a mu'min. Ikhlas is the difference between them. So a munafiq or a hypocrite, they worship Allah outwardly with their body, but inwardly they have no sincerity in that worship. They do not mean anything by it. It's just a show with their body, with their outward worship to make people think that they are Muslim. So a mu'min is identified by the fact that he has ikhlas, by the fact that he is sincere in his worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-ikhlas, like some of the scholars have said, is like the soul of the body. The outward actions that we do with our body, prayer and fasting and hajj and giving charity, all of these are like the body. But what is the soul? It is the thing that keeps the body alive. So therefore, without ikhlas, without sincerity, our actions are like a dead body. A body which is performing actions, but it has no soul to it. Al-ikhlas in the Arabic language comes from the word khalasa. Khalasa, khurusan, khalasan, all of these root words, they mean to purify something. So if you were to, for example, look at a container of milk, a cup of milk, and you see that there's a hair in it, or you see there's a particle of dust in it, so you remove it. This is the same meaning as ikhlas. It is to purify something, to remove anything that would corrupt it or harm it or make it filthy. So we are purifying our actions for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إفراد الحق بالقصد, to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the subject of our devotion, to make our ibadah, our worship, sincerely for Allah. إفراد الحق بالقصد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He orders us with al-ikhlas, as we mentioned in the ayah. أَلَا لِلَّهِ الدِّينُ الْخَالِصِ. The pure religion, the sincere submission is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will only accept the actions that are done purely for His sake. That's why it's crucial for us as Muslims to think before we do any action. And we're not saying think before you stop yourself from sinning. No, we're saying think before you do a good deed. And to say, what is my intention behind this good deed? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says in the famous hadith, the first of al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyah, The hadith that many of the scholars, they said, anyone who writes a book of hadith, it is liked that they should start their book with this hadith. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions will only be judged according to their intentions. You will only receive from the action that you do, the intention that you had behind it. So if we have an action that we have done not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will not be accepted, and on top of that, it may be a cause for us to be punished, as we will see later on in the khutbah. When we do any action, we try to make it sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this action will be any worship, anything we do in our life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say that my prayer and my sacrifice and my living and my dying is all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything in our life, from our birth to our death, we try to make it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sincerity is one of the two conditions that any action is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surat Al-Mulk, Allah is the one who created life and death to test which one of you is better in their action. Their action is better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us in this life which one of our actions will be better. Some of the scholars, they said, أَخْلَصُهُ وَأَصْوَبُهُ. أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, in the ayat, which one of you is better in action, it means which one of you has the most ikhlas and their action is the most correct. And then in Fulayl ibn Iyad, he went on to explain this. Somebody asked him, they said, what does it mean that something is the most correct, or it is correct, and it is also with ikhlas? He says, an action, if it's done for the sake of Allah, but it's not done correctly, it will not be accepted. And if it's done correctly, but it's not done for the sake of Allah, it will not be corrected. It will not be accepted. An example of those would be somebody who does an action which is sincere for the sake of Allah, but it's not a correct action, it's not sawab. Meaning it's not upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If somebody just invents one day and says, I think part of our religion should be dancing, and we should have dancing as part of our religion, you know, they do it in other churches and things like that, maybe we should introduce it. And that person is very sincere in his idea, and he thinks it's a good idea. Even if they're so sincere, and they have ikhlas in their mentality or in their intention, it would not be accepted from them. Why? Because it's not salab, it's not from the Sunnah. It's not from the way of Islam. And the opposite, if an action is not sincere, but outwardly it's following the Sunnah. If somebody gets up and prays 2 rak'at, looks very beautiful, you see them taking a long time and fulfilling all of the Sunnah, and they recite in the prayer, but all of that prayer, they just did it to show off to somebody else, so somebody would notice their prayer. Then that prayer, which outwardly looks like it is sawab, it looks like it's according to the sunnah, in reality it would not be accepted because it does not have ikhlas. So these are the two pillars of our actions being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ikhlas and sawab. That it's sincere and that it's correct according to the religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We only feed you. They say this to the prisoners and to the poor. We only feed you for the sake of Allah, for the face of Allah. We do not want any reward from you. We do not want any recompense from you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that they are doing this action for the sake of Allah. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, and we do not know. Many of us, we may say, I did this thing for the sake of Allah. And we may boast about some sadaqah or some charity that we gave, or some action that we did, and we say, I did it for the sake of Allah. In reality, brothers and sisters, this is a big claim that we are making. This is a big claim to say, I did something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not easy for us to claim that, because Allah knows what's in our hearts. So we should not take these words lightly to say, I did this for the sake of Allah. Alhamdulillah, I did all of that work for the sake of Allah. I volunteered, I donated, I did this, I did that, all for the sake of Allah. We do not know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows what's in our hearts. As for us, we just try our best as Muslims. And this correcting of our ikhlas, our niyyah, is not something that we do once in a lifetime. It's not that we say, okay, now I think I have ikhlas and I'm good. No. Every day, every ibadah, I have to take a moment and think about it. One of the righteous salaf, he was invited to go to a janazah, to a funeral. Somebody said, let's go to a janazah. He said, Kama anta hatta anwi. He said, wait in your place for a moment so I can make an intention. And then he thought for a moment, and then he said, let's go. Many times we may say, okay, I'll go to the janazah because somebody else is going. But this person, he wanted to make sure that he gets the reward. To think about it and to say, okay, I'm going to the janazah, I want to get the reward of praying over my dead brother, I want to fulfill the responsibility of a deceased over me, I want to console the deceased family, I want to advise others with patience. So he makes these intentions, and then he said, let's go to the janazah. And if we make the intention, if we have ikhlas, we will receive the full reward. And which one of us would want to lose on the reward of the actions that we are doing? We do not want our actions to be haba'an manthura, to be like a dust on the day of judgment. It's a lot, but it has no meaning. We want all of our actions that we are doing, we are working hard to be Muslims in this life. We would not want to work hard and then just find out it's not accepted from us. So all of this hard work of being a Muslim in this day and age should be accompanied with thinking about our intention behind these actions. If we make the correct intention, if we have ikhlas and the correct niyyah, even the most basic things can become a source of reward. Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu, he says, إِنِّي لَأَحْتَسِبُ نَوْمَتِي كَمَا أَحْتَسِبُ قَوْمَتِي. He said, I seek reward from Allah for my sleeping, just like I seek reward from Allah for getting up and praying at night. How does he seek a reward for sleeping? I understand that he might seek the reward from Allah and expect the reward from Allah for praying Qiyamul Layl. But what reward is he expecting for going to sleep at night? We have to go to sleep. We cannot avoid going to sleep. The answer is that he is seeking the reward because he goes to sleep at night with the intention that I'm going to sleep to get some rest so that I can wake up and pray Qiyamul Layl. And if I stay up late at night, I would not be able to wake up for Qiyam. So I'm going to sleep with the intention that it's helping me to do an ibadah. If one of us goes to work, and I make the intention I'm going to work at the office for 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, and I'm driving in the commute and in the traffic, all of this, so I can support my family, which the Prophet ﷺ ordered us with. I am spending on my family and providing for them, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me, then your hours of work and your hours of driving would be rewarded from you. I am taking care of my children. I am cooking for them. I am spending time with them so that they have their father and their mother in their life and they have a good or they remember the father figure and the mother role in their household, then you would get a reward for it. You could get a reward for playing with your children. All of this comes from making an intention, from having sincerity. The most mundane actions that we would normally do anyway, we could get a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ikhlas, brothers and sisters, has many great benefits. From them is that it will save a person in the time of difficulty. In the famous hadith of the 3 men who were blocked in a cave when a huge boulder came and blocked the entrance and they could not escape. They said to themselves, ask Allah by the purest of your actions, or what you think to be the purest of the actions. So each one of them mentioned an action that they did sincerely for the sake of Allah. One of them said, my parents, I would never feed anyone before my parents. So one day, I went to them with the milk, and I found that they had fallen asleep. So I waited there standing all night long for them to wake up so I could feed my parents before I would feed my family. And he said, oh Allah, if you know that I did this action sincerely for your sake, then rescue me from this situation that I am in. So the rock moved. And then finally, all three of them made a similar dua until they finally escaped from the cave and they walked out in the open. Likewise, one of us, if we have actions that we hope are sincere from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can ask Allah in a time of difficulty, oh Allah, if you blessed me to do such and such action with ikhlas and sincerity, then please help me in this time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may relieve your distress because of that sincere action. Ikhlas will bring barakah and tawfiq, success from Allah, a spiritual success, not a materialistic success. Because there are certain things in life that you cannot ascribe to material means. It could only have come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is from ikhlas. We have some of our scholars throughout history, and Imam Nafi, for example, they said if you take the number of books they wrote and divide it by the number of years that they lived, it's almost unnatural. They were writing 10 or 20 pages a day. And they lived, Imam Nafi, he lived only almost till 40 or so. A short life. But he wrote books as if he's writing 10 pages a day or 20 pages a day, consistently his entire life. This is something extremely difficult. Did he never take a break? Did he never get tired? So how did he do this? How did some scholars on their own as individuals, they wrote what entire institutions could not. Some of the works of hadith and the works of encyclopedias of biographies of scholars, for example, or the works of tafsir, which are in the 30 volumes or 40 volumes, an entire university could not carry out this work. But one man carried it out. So how did this happen? How did these scholars get this barakah in their life? Because they were doing these actions sincerely for the sake of Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them in a way that is tawfiq. We cannot understand fully, but it is the success that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Abbas, he said, إِنَّمَا يَحْفَظُ الرَّجُلُ عَلَى قَدْرِ نِيَّتِهِ. A person only memorizes according to their intention. Meaning, a person, how did they memorize? How did Imam al-Bukhari memorize in the hundreds of thousands of ahadith? This is beyond the ability of most human beings. It's because he was doing it sincerely for the sake of Allah, so Allah gave him the success. A person only memorizes according to their ability, according to their intention, So if one of us wants to do something, if we want to memorize the Quran, if we want to learn some beneficial knowledge, make a good intention and be firm in that intention. I want to do this to benefit myself and to benefit my family and to teach my children and to help the community. And you make a lot of good niyas and be sincere in what you are saying, then you will find that the success will come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will end, brothers and sisters, with just some of the examples of the early Muslims in their ikhlas towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From them is Ali ibn Hussin, radiyallahu anhu. Some people in his lifetime, he is the Ali ibn Hussin, Ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, the great-grandson of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Some people in his lifetime, they said that he was stingy. They accused him of being stingy. And they only found out after his death that he was supporting 100 families in Al-Madinah secretly at night, and nobody knew that he was the one doing it, not even the families. Because when he died, that's when the food that used to come to their doors at night stopped coming. And they realized that with his death and his funeral, the food had stopped coming. That means he was doing it in secret. He was not only hiding it from the people, but he was even hiding it from the poor that he was helping. So he was supporting 100 families by himself, and some people in his lifetime, they said, how come he's not donating? How come he doesn't give any money? Al-Hasan Al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, a man used to, meaning during the time of the Sahaba and the righteous generations, a man used to memorize the entire Quran and his neighbor would not know about it. He would not go and tell everybody and boast. A man would memorize the entire Quran and his own neighbor would not know. A person would pray a long prayer at night in his room and his wife would not realize that he is standing there praying throughout the night. He said, I saw some people that they would never accept that they could do a deed in private and they would do it in public. If there was any possibility that they could hide their actions, they would do it. And this is one of the greatest signs of ikhlas, of sincerity, is that we will do our actions in private. We are a better person in private than we are in public. And that's the test. Some scholars, they said if we want to test ourselves, Wallahu musta'an, about our ikhlas, about our sincerity, then look at how we are in private. Am I a better person in private than I am in public? How is my prayer when I'm at home? Do I speed through it, but in the masjid I would slow down a bit? What kind of person am I in private versus what kind of person am I in public? This is a great test of what kind of ikhlas that we have. So this is something we constantly need to work on. Some of our actions, brothers and sisters, have to be done in public. Our Hajj, our Umrah, we have to make it in public. We cannot do it privately, but at least we can test our sincerity and ask Allah to purify our deeds when we do something. We do not have to boast about it. We do not have to tell everyone. We do not have to post it all over social media, unless it's for a good reason and a good intention to make your family members happy or to encourage others, for example. These are permissible intentions. But if we are just boasting for the sake of boasting, then this is something that will reduce and lessen the reward that we would receive for those actions. And this is something especially dangerous in this day and age of social media. When everything we do is going to be in public, we have to test our ikhlas, especially in this day and age. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن ينفعنا بما قلنا وسمعنا والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Please pass the boxes. Just a reminder that when we come into Jumu'ah, part of the Jumu'ah is silently listening to the Khutba, inshallah. So we welcome all the children. Please bring your children to the Musalla. But if you have young children who can't sit through the entire Jumu'ah, we do have a space for the sisters, a lounge area where you can hear the Jumu'ah and the kids can be kids, to make sure that we are still able to preserve the sanctity of the space, inshallah. This also includes turning off your cell phones. This also includes not talking. This also includes not being idle with other things during Jumu'ah. It's 45 minutes once a week. So please make sure you pay attention and be here present for Jumu'ah, inshallah. Salam.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون من كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤته منها وما له في الآخرة من نصيب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever wants from the harvest of this life, then we will increase him in it, and he will not have any portion in the hereafter. The opposite of ikhlas, the sincerity that we were talking about, is riyah, which is showing off. And showing off, brothers and sisters, with our deeds that we do, is from the most foolish of actions, if we would only think about it. It's very hard to avoid, but it's very foolish at the same time. Because when we show off to people, in reality, what are we getting from them? We are getting nothing. We are showing off to people with our prayer, or with our sadaqah, or with any deed. We are showing off to people that cannot benefit us at all. Why would we not make our intention sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah could, if He wants, place the love of the people in their hearts for us. If Allah loves you, He will make the people love you also. But if you show off for the people, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may expose you. So you lose both. You lose the love of Allah and you lose the admiration of people that you are looking for. The Prophet ﷺ says in a terrifying hadith that from the very first 3 people that will be thrown in the hellfire, a person might say, who would be the first person to be thrown in the hellfire? The people who committed the major sins? No, the Prophet ﷺ said, from the first people to be thrown in the hellfire is a scholar, a reciter of the Quran, and a generous person who always is donating, and a brave person who's fighting in the path of Allah. And these people, they are asked on the Day of Judgment, why did you do this action? They will say, I did it for your sake, Ya Allah. So it will be said to them, you are lying. You did not read the Quran for my sake, but you only did it so that people would say you're a qari. And he's thrown in the hellfire. And why did you donate? He would say, I donated for the sake of Allah, for your sake, Ya Allah. It will be said to him, you're a liar. You read or you donated so that people would say you're generous. And then he's taken and thrown in the hellfire. Why did you fight in the path of Allah? I fought so that I could defend your religion for your sake. You are lying. You only fought so that people would say you are brave, and then he's taken and thrown in the hellfire. So what's the purpose of us showing off for other people, brothers and sisters? We make our actions for the sake of Allah. We try our best. We constantly work on making our intention for the sake of Allah. And if Allah wants, He can make the people admire us and love us also. But that should not be our intention. Our intention should be purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, we are doing a lot of actions, but we are losing out on the reward on the Day of Judgment. وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned some people on the Day of Judgment that He says their actions on the Day of Judgment are like dust, scattered wind. A mountain of deeds, but it's like a mountain of dust. It would blow away with the slightest breeze. It appears to be a lot, but it's nothing, because it was not done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us ikhlas in our worship. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from riyah, showing off. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and relieve the suffering of the Muslims around the world. Allahumma اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. واذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.